The alien trade station was always busy, filled with the noise of engines, voices, and the smell of strange spices in the air. Evan, a human engineer, worked near Docking Bay 12. Fixing a damaged power coupling, his job was simple: repair what was broken, avoid trouble, and keep to himself. But today, trouble found him. The ground shook slightly, and a deep shadow covered his work. He looked up. His heart skipped a beat. Standing in front of him was a giantess from the Thrila race. She was massive, at least 15 feet tall, with golden eyes that glowed like fire. Her armor was made of black metal with glowing red lines running across it. The air around her felt heavy, like gravity itself bent to her will. Most people avoided the Thrila. They were known as proud warriors, quick to take offense. Evan had seen one once from a distance, but never this close. This one was different, calm, but her presence was like a storm waiting to break. She was carrying a crate the size of a small room, setting it down with ease. Her every movement was controlled and graceful. Evan didn't know what made him speak. Maybe it was nerves, maybe it was respect, but the words left his mouth before he could. "Stop them. That's an impressive armor you've got," he said, his voice casual. For a second, nothing happened. The noise of the station seemed to fade. Her golden eyes turned toward him. Locking on his face, she didn't blink, didn't smile, just stared. Then, slowly, a smile formed on her lips, not the kind of smile that warmed you. It was sharp, dangerous, like a predator amused by its prey. "You honor me," she said, her voice deep and rich. "And you bind yourself to me?" Evan blinked. "Bind?" "I was just being polite," he replied, trying to laugh it off. She took a step closer. The ground seemed to shake with her weight among the Thrila. "When a warrior's armor is praised, it is an oath," she said. "It means you stand with them in battle, or in life." Evan's stomach turned cold. "I didn't mean you will honor it." She cut in. Her voice left no space for argument. He stepped back, glancing around. The other aliens in the bay had stopped what they were doing. Some were whispering, some were smirking. A few shook their heads in pity. Clearly, they understood what he had just stepped into. The giantess leaned down, her face close enough that he could see the faint scars on her cheek. "You will come to my quarters tonight," she said softly, almost like a threat. "We will speak further." Before he could say anything, she turned and walked away, her massive footsteps echoing. She didn't look back, but Evan knew she expected him to follow her command. Evan stood frozen for a moment. His hands felt cold. His heart was beating too fast. This had to be some misunderstanding. He had work to finish, a schedule to keep. But the stares from the other dock workers told him this wasn't going to go away. An older alien with gray skin and 4 eyes came up beside him. "Human," the alien said in a low voice. "Do you know who that was?" Evan shook his head. "That was Valra, daughter of the Iron Fang clan." The alien said, almost whispering, "If she claims you, there is no escape. Refuse her, and you insult her honor. Do that, and you may not live to see another sunrise." Evan swallowed hard. This was insane. He was just a repairman, not a warrior. He had no business in Thrila politics, but he also had no desire to die over a stupid compliment. As he packed up his tools, his mind raced. Maybe he could talk to her, explain the misunderstanding. Surely a reasonable person, Giantess or not, would understand. But something told him Valro was not the kind of person to change her mind once it was made. Hours later, Evan found himself standing outside a massive door in the upper decks of the station. The air here was warmer, quieter. The guards at the entrance to more Thrila, almost as big as Valro, watched him with cold eyes. One of them spoke. "She is expecting you." The door opened with a deep metallic hiss. Inside, the room was huge. The ceiling high enough for 3 humans to stand on each other's shoulders and still not touch it. Strange alien banners hung from the walls. Weapons of all kinds lined a rack. The air smelled faintly of metal and some kind of sweet spice. Valra was there, standing near a large table covered with maps and holograms. She looked up when he entered. That same sharp smile touched her lips. "You came," she said. "Good. Now we can discuss how you will honor your oath." Evan's stomach tightened. He realized this was not a misunderstanding. This was the start of something far bigger than he could have imagined. Evan stood awkwardly in the middle of the Giantess's quarters. The floor felt like it could fit a small shuttle, and the furniture was built for someone twice the size of a human. Even the cup on the table looked big enough for him to bathe. In Valra, the Giantess moved with slow, deliberate steps. Her heavy armor plates clicking softly, she gestured to a Seator at least. A block of stone shaped like one meant for guests. Evan climbed onto it, feeling like a child in a giant's world. Valra poured herself a drink from a metal jug and took a long sip before she spoke. "In my people's way," she began, "words are not light. When you speak, you make weight. You gave me a gift when you spoke of my armor." Evan raised his hands. "I didn't mean it," like she held up her hand, stopping him among the Thrila. "When a warrior's armor is praised, it is a vow. It says you are ready to stand beside them in danger, to face blood and fire with them." Your words were heard. "By the spirits of my clan." Evan's shoulders slumped. "So what happens if I don't stand beside you?" he asked carefully. Her golden eyes narrowed. "Then I lose honor, and when I lose honor, I take it back in blood." Evan swallowed hard. The message was clear. The compliment, he thought, was nothing had put his life in. The middle of an alien code he didn't understand. He glanced around the room, noticing a large wall display covered in trophies, broken blades, cracked armor, and glowing crystals. "You're important in your clan, aren't you?" he asked. Her smile was small but proud. "I am Valra, daughter of the Iron Fang clan. My father is the war chief. My word is law among my people." That explained the whispers back at the docks. This wasn't just a cultural misunderstanding, this was political. If he backed out, he wouldn't just anger her. He could create a scandal that might turn her entire clan against him. Valra leaned forward, her elbows resting on the table. "There is a trial coming," she said, "one that will decide my place in the clan. I will lead my warriors into the arena of chains. If we win, my father will name me his successor. If we lose, my enemies will tear my name from the songs of our people." Evan shook his head. "I'm an engineer, not a fighter." "You've got the wrong guy for this." She tilted her head, her golden hair sliding over her shoulder. "You have hands that build and eyes that see what others do not. This is why. The spirits sent you to me. You will help me win." He let out a dry laugh. "And what if I just go back to my repair job and pretend this never happened?" Her voice dropped low, the sound carrying a dangerous edge. "Then your body will float in the black before the next station rotation. And my honor will be clean." Evan looked at her, trying to read her expression. There was no cruelty in her tone, just certainty. She truly believed she was being fair. The door opened, and two younger Thrala warriors entered. They were almost as big as Valra, but moved with less grace. One carried a set of giant-sized weapons. The other brought a tray of food that smelled sharp and spicy. Valra took a piece of the food, bit into it, then handed another to Evan. The meat was tough, but he forced himself to chew. She nodded, apparently pleased. "You will train with me," she said. "Not in combat yet, but in our ways. If you are to stand beside me, you must know our law, our signals, our songs." Evan frowned. "Songs?" She smiled faintly. "We fight to music. The drums guide our strikes. The chants keep our hearts in rhythm. When the battle comes, you will move when I move, and stop when I stop." It sounded ridiculous to him, but something in her voice told him It was no joke. The Thrila were a warrior culture where tradition was as sharp as any blade. Hours passed as she told him the stories of her people, the great wars, the rival clans, the sacred duels. The more she spoke, the more Evan realized how deep this went. This wasn't just a warrior showing off, it was a lifetime of rules, honor, and unbreakable customs. By the time the room dimmed into the station's artificial night cycle, Evan's head felt heavy with information. Valra stood, towering over him. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will see the arena. You will see where your words have taken you." She stepped closer, resting her massive hand on his shoulder. The weight was like a boulder, but her grip was careful, almost respectful. "Sleep well, human. You will need your strength." Evan lay awake that night in the small guest space she had given him. Staring at the ceiling, his mind kept replaying her words. He had given a compliment, and now he was bound to an alien giantess about to step into a trial that could change both their lives. The next morning came too soon. Evan woke to the deep sound of drums echoing through the walls. At first, he thought it was just station noise. But the rhythm was steady, deliberate. It was the sound of Thrila warriors training. He sat up, his back sore from the massive bed built for someone twice his size. The guest room door slid open without a knock. Valra stepped inside, wearing lighter armor this time. Her hair was braided tight, and a strange metal band circled her arm. "Come," she said, "it is time for your first test." Evan rubbed his eyes. "Test? I thought the arena was tomorrow." She shook her head. "The arena is for warriors. You are not yet one. First, I must know if your words have weight. If you can be trusted beside me." They walked through the upper decks of the station, passing towering warriors, alien merchants, and strange machines Evan had never seen before. He noticed the way others moved aside for Valra, eyes lowering in respect or fear. They stopped at a huge training hall. The air smelled of oil, metal, and sweat. Dozens of Thrila warriors were sparring, each strike ringing like thunder. Valra led him to a smaller room at the back. Inside was a single long table covered with weapons, massive axes, spears, and blades that Evan could barely lift alongside unfamiliar tools and devices. Valra gestured to the table. "Choose one." Evan stared at the weapons. "I can't use any of these. They're too big." Her lips curled slightly. "That is the point." "Ha! I must see if you can think past what you cannot do." He scanned the table again, then noticed something small tucked between two heavy shields, a dagger. Still large for a human hand, but far lighter than the other weapons. He picked it up, feeling the balance. Valra nodded once. "Good, you see? Not all battles are won with strength. Sometimes the smallest blade can cut the deepest." She motioned for him to follow her again. This time, they entered a circular chamber. With a metal floor, the lights dimmed, and suddenly the walls shifted, revealing a holographic simulation. The floor became uneven terrain, scattered with rocks and twisted metal. Strange alien creatures flickered into view, low, fast, and moving. In packs, their glowing eyes locked onto him. Evan took a step back. "What is this?" Valra's voice was calm, a trial of awareness. "These are shadow beasts from our homeworld. They hunt in silence. You must survive for 5 minutes without letting them touch you." Without letting them, he didn't finish the sentence, because one of the creatures lunged. Instinct took over. He ducked, rolling to the side. The beast missed him by inches. He kept moving, weaving between the holographic rocks. His heart pounded. Every time he stopped, another beast appeared from a blind spot, forcing him to react from outside the simulation. Valra watched closely, her expression unreadable. Evan wasn't fast compared to the beasts, but he was clever. He started using the rocks to block their path, predicting their movements and forcing them into narrow spaces where they couldn't lunge freely. When the 5 minutes ended, the creatures vanished, the terrain faded, and the floor returned to smooth metal. Evan stood there, panting, sweat dripping down his face. Valra stepped forward. You see? Oh, you move like prey, but you think like a hunter. This will keep you alive in the arena. Evan gave a shaky laugh. Thanks. I think, but Valra wasn't done. She walked to the table and picked up the dagger he had chosen earlier. She handed it to him. This is yours now. It is forged from blood steel. It will cut what others cannot. Carry it always. He accepted it, feeling the strange weight in his hand. This wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol. The kind of gesture that meant something in her culture. They left the training hall and returned to her quarters. Valra set the dagger on a stand beside his sleeping space. Tonight, you will rest. She said, tomorrow, the arena will see if you are worthy of your words. Evan looked at her, and if I'm not? Her golden eyes held his for a long moment. Then the arena will eat you, and my honor will be clean. She left him alone. The door closing behind her felt heavier than steel. Evan lay back on the giant bed, staring at the dagger. He could feel the weight of everything pressing down on him, the promise he never meant to make, the trial waiting for him, and the fact that one way or another, tomorrow would change his life. The next day came with a tension Evan could feel in the air. The station's usual noise seemed distant, muffled. Valra's warriors moved with quiet purpose, their armor polished, their weapons strapped to their backs. Even the air smelled different, sharp with the metallic temps of blood oil used to coat. Thrilla weapons, Valra entered Evan's room, this time in full ceremonial armor. The black plates shimmered under the lights, the red lines glowing like molten metal. Her presence filled the space. It is time, she said simply. They walked together through long corridors toward the arena's core. The sounds grew louder with every step, shouts, drums, and the low hum of energy fields. The air vibrated with anticipation when the great doors opened. Evan's eyes widened. The arena was massive, a hollow sphere of metal and light. Thousands of aliens filled the stands, their voices mixing into a roar that shook the walls. Above, banners from rival clans hung like battle scars. In the center, the battleground awaited a twisted maze of chains, platforms, and energy barriers. Valra's warriors formed a half-circle around her. Each was chained at the wrist to a thick, glowing link anchored to the arena floor. The chains pulsed with energy, humming like an angry hive. Valra stepped forward, her voice loud enough to carry over the crowd. Today, we fight not for blood, but for honor. We break the chains. We break our enemies, and we rise. The crowd roared. Evan's heart pounded in his chest. He had never been in a place that felt so alive, so dangerous. Valra motioned for him to step beside her. The cold metal of the energy chain locked onto his wrist with a hiss. A voice boomed from above, speaking in the deep tones of the arena master. The trial begins. Suddenly, gates around the arena burst open. Massive alien beasts charged in, creatures with armored hides, glowing eyes, and teeth like blades. Their roars drowned out the crowd. The ground shook under their steps. Valra raised her weapon, blocking one of the beasts. With a powerful strike, sparks flew as her blade met the creature's armor. Evan, the chain, she shouted. Evan dropped to one knee, scanning the glowing links. His engineering mind kicked in. The energy pulses came in a steady rhythm, strong, weak, strong, weak. If he could strike during the weak point, the chain might shatter. He pulled out the blood steel dagger Valra had given him. Timing his strike, he slammed the blade into the chain during the pulse's weakest point. The metal screamed and split, sending a burst of light into the air. His chain fell free. Good. Valra roared, blocking another beast. Help the others. Evan ran to the nearest warrior, dodging a swipe from one of the creatures. The Thriana fighter swung his weapon to keep the beast at bay, while Evan worked. Another chain broke. The warrior roared in approval, smashing his weapon into the creature's head. One by one, Evan freed more warriors. The crowd began to notice. Their roars grew louder. The human's small size and speed became an advantage. He could slip between the beasts where the giant warriors could not. But just as he reached the last warrior, a massive beast lunged at him from the side. Its teeth closed around empty air. As Valra slammed into it with her full weight, her blade sliced deep into its neck. Dark blood spraying across the floor. With the final chain broken, the warriors moved as one. Driving the beasts back toward the gates, the arena floor shook with every strike. Evan stayed close to Valra. Watching her fight, every movement was precise, each strike filled with purpose. She was more than just strong. She was a storm given shape. At last, the beasts lay still. The chain shattered. The crowd erupted into cheers. The arena master's voice thundered. The Iron Fang clan is victorious. Valra raised her weapon high, her golden eyes sweeping over the crowd. This human, she shouted, pointing at Evan, fought with me, broke the chains, and earned his place at my side. He is mine now. The crowd roared even louder, chanting her name. Evan stood there, breathing hard, the dagger still in his hand. He wasn't sure if he had just survived or been claimed forever. As they left the arena, Valra's warriors clapped his shoulder in rough approval. Valra herself walked beside him. You did well, she said. Now the whole station knows you stand with me. Evan gave a weak smile, but inside he knew things had just become far more complicated. The chains were gone, but the bond they symbolized was stronger than ever. The victory in the arena of chains had changed everything. The Iron Fang clan walked through the station with their heads high. The crowd's eyes followed them, some with respect, others with envy. Evan, who had been just a human repairman days ago, now found himself treated as part of Valra's warband in the days that followed. Strangers approached him. Some congratulated him. Some simply stared. A few even whispered offers, political deals, trades, and secrets. Evan quickly realized it wasn't his skill they admired. It was the connection to Valra. Valra herself was different after the trial. She spoke to him more often, sometimes even asking for his opinion during strategy meetings. She had seen him act under pressure, and that seemed to matter to her. But her new trust came with new responsibilities. One evening, as the twin moons of the station's artificial sky glowed above the observation deck, Valra joined him. She was without her armor for once, wearing a long, dark robe that still carried the weight of her presence. You have brought me honor, she said, looking out at the stars. But honor attracts challengers. Evan frowned. Challengers. In our way, she explained, a warrior's worth is proven through the strength of their allies. Now, many will wish to test you. Some will do it to measure me. Others to break me. As if on cue, the next day it began. A towering Thrila male approached Evan in the docking bay. His armor was etched with the mark of a rival clan. His voice was cold. Human, they say you broke the chains. Prove it to me. Evan barely had time to respond before the warrior swung a blunt training spear. Forcing him to jump back, the clash drew a crowd. Evan had no weapon. His dagger was back in Valra's quarters, but he remembered the arena. He dodged, using the crates and docking equipment as cover. The warrior was faster than the beasts, but less cunning. Evan baited him toward a low support beam, then ducked under it. The warrior's spear caught on the beam, slowing him just long enough for Evan to grab a nearby metal rod and press it against the warrior's neck. The crowd murmured in surprise. The rival warrior stepped back, smirking. Perhaps you are more than a pet, he said. Before walking away, Valra found him later. She didn't ask what happened. But her eyes told him she already knew. Good. She said simply, "You used your size, not your pride. That is why you live." Over the next week, the challenges continued. Some were tests of strength, others of wit. One Thrila female challenged him to a game of tactical stones of war simulation using carved pieces on a grid. Evan lost the first round but adapted quickly, winning the next two. The murmurs in the station grew louder. People were starting to believe the human might truly be a worthy ally to the Iron Fang daughter. But there were darker signs too. Messages left on his quarters door symbols he didn't understand but recognized as warnings. Supplies going missing, guards posted outside Valra's quarters being bribed by unknown hands. One night, during a quiet meal, Evan decided to ask, "You've made enemies, haven't you?" Valra didn't look up from her plate. "I was born with enemies, human. But now they see a new way to reach me through you." The weight of her words settled on him. He wasn't just caught in a cultural misunderstanding anymore. He was in the center of a web of politics and rivalries he barely understood. Still, he couldn't deny something had shifted inside him. When he had first met her, he had wanted nothing more than to get away. Now, though he didn't fully trust her, he found himself respecting her. She was dangerous, yes, but she was also loyal to those who stood with her. That loyalty was tested sooner than he expected, late one cycle. While walking back from the engineering bay, Evan spotted a shadow moving where there shouldn't have been one. A flash of metal caught his eye. Instinct took over. He ducked just as a blade slashed past where his neck had been. The attacker was fast, smaller than a Thrila, but stronger than a human. Evan fought to keep distance, grabbing a loose cable from the floor and swinging it to keep the assassin back. The fight ended when Valra herself appeared, grabbing the attacker by the throat and slamming them into the wall. She looked at Evan, her voice low but edged with something almost like concern. "You live." "Yeah," Evan said, still catching his breath. "Thanks to you." Valra dropped the unconscious assassin to the floor. "No," she said. "Thanks to you, I arrived in time because you fought instead of froze." They stood there for a moment in the dim corridor, the hum of the station around them. Both knew this was only the beginning. The victory in the arena had been a start, but the debt between them was still growing, and in the Thrila way, debts were never left unpaid. The attack in the corridor had left Evan uneasy. The assassin's face still lingered in his mind. Sharp features, dark eyes, and a strange tattoo on the neck. Valra's warriors took the body away, saying nothing. But their silence spoke louder than any warning for the next few days. Evan noticed the change. Valra moved with more caution. Her guards doubled in number. Her meetings were held in locked rooms. Even the air in her quarters felt heavier, like a storm waiting to break. One evening, while Evan was repairing a damaged sensor in the docking bay, a soft voice came from behind him. "You're not safe here, human." He turned to see the gray-skinned, four-eyed merchant who had once warned him about Valra. The merchant leaned closer, lowering his voice. The attack was not random. It was bought. Evan's brow furrowed. Bought. By who? The merchant glanced around nervously. Her rivals in the council. They plan to remove her before the war chief's succession. There will be a peace council in 2 days. She will not leave it alive unless something changes. Evan's first thought was to tell Valra immediately, but the merchant grabbed his arm. "Careful, human. The traitor may be among her own." That night, Evan paced his small guest room. His mind replayed every face he had seen in Valra's warband. Who could betray her? He didn't know their politics, their history. But he knew one thing. He did nothing. Valra could be dead in 2 days, and if she fell, he wouldn't last much longer either. He decided to take a risk. Without telling Valra, he slipped out into the lower decks of the station. The air was thick with engine fumes. Shadows stretching long under flickering lights. He knew the assassin's tattoo was a clue, and in the underworld of the station, tattoos were as good as names after hours of asking questions and dodging unfriendly stares. He found a small den lit by red lanterns inside. Alien mercenaries drank and played card games with sharp, jagged tiles. One wall was covered in painted symbols, gang marks, clan signs, and mercenary badges. There it was, the same tattoo. The mark belonged to a group called the Black Veil. Assassins for hire, silent and deadly. Before he could leave, a voice came from the corner, looking for someone human. Evan froze. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows, wearing the same mark on their neck. This one was no hologram, no training sim. The mercenary's smile was slow. Dangerous. You should not be here. Evan thought fast. I'm here to hire. You, he lied. The mercenary tilted his head. Curious, who is the target? Evan leaned closer, pretending to whisper, but his eyes scanned the room. Noting exits and weapons, I'll tell you when I know I can trust you. It worked just long enough for him to back toward the door. Then he ran. His footsteps pounded against the metal floor, shouts behind him. He ducked into a side corridor, slipping through maintenance ducts until he reached the upper levels again. When he finally returned to Valra's quarters, she was waiting, arms crossed. Her eyes burned like molten gold. You've been somewhere dangerous, she said. Not a question, but a statement. Evan hesitated, then told her everything: the merchants. Warning, the Black Veil, the tattoo, and the plan to strike at the Peace Council. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she stood in silence for a moment. Then she called two of her most trusted warriors. Seal the entrances to the council chamber, she ordered. Place guards where no one can see them. If my enemies want to strike, we will be ready. The day of the Peace Council arrived. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from dozens of clans. Their voices echoed under the high ceilings. Valra walked at the center, her presence drawing eyes. Evan stayed close, pretending to be just her human aid, but his eyes scanned every shadow. Halfway through the meeting, movement caught his attention: a figure slipping behind one of the high banners. Evan's heart raced. Without thinking, he moved, shouting Valra's name. The assassin lunged from the shadows, blade drawn, but Valra was faster. She turned, catching the attacker's wrist in mid-strike. The blade clattered to the floor. Warriors swarmed in, dragging the assassin away. The chamber erupted in shouts and accusations. Valra stood tall, her voice cutting through the chaos. There will be no more shadows in this council, she said. Those who strike from the dark will find me waiting in the light. Later, when the hall was empty, she looked at Evan. Her tone was softer than he expected. You risked much to find the truth. Evan shrugged. You saved my life more than once. I guess it was my turn. Valra's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Perhaps you are not just bound to me by accident. Perhaps the spirits chose well. But deep inside, Evan knew this wasn't over. The shadows had been beaten back, but they hadn't vanished. And if the Black Veil was still out there, the next strike might be worse. The Peace Council attack had changed more than just the politics of the station. For the first time, Evan saw the Thrila look at him with open respect, not just curiosity. Valra's warriors nodded to him when he passed. And even the merchants, who once avoided him, now greeted him with cautious smiles. But with respect came responsibility. Valra's enemies were quieter, but not gone. Her rivals had lost face in the council, and that made them more dangerous. The Black Veil had disappeared into the shadows again, leaving a silence that felt heavy. A few days after the council, Valra called for Evan to meet her in the training hall. When he arrived, she was already there, wearing lighter armor. The room was empty except for a small weapons rack and a circle marked on the floor. Step inside, she said, her voice calm. Evan frowned. Is this another test? Her golden eyes watched him closely. It is not a test. It is a choice. He stepped into the circle. The cold metal floor hummed faintly beneath his boots. Valra picked up a short spear from the rack and held it out to him. "Take it." Evan hesitated, then gripped the weapon. It was heavier than he expected. "In my people's way," Valra began, "there are many bonds. Some are made of blood, some of honor. But the strongest is the life bond. It is not given lightly, it is not broken, not even in death." Evan's heart skipped. "And you're saying?" "I am saying," she continued, "that you have stood with me when you could have run. You have risked your life for mine. You have seen the shadows and still walked forward. That is enough for me." She stepped closer, towering over him, but her presence felt less like a threat and more like a shield. "If you choose, you will be bound to me as my life-bonded partner. Not as a prisoner, not as a servant, but as an equal. Our victories will be shared. Our enemies will be ours together." Evan was silent for a long moment. His mind went back to the first time he saw her, the terrifying smile, the weight of her words, the chains of the arena. He thought about the challenges, the betrayals, and the way they had fought side by side. Finally, he tightened his grip on the spear. "All right, Valra, if I'm in this, I'm in it all the way." A slow smile spread across her face. Then Evan knelt in the circle. Valra placed one massive hand on his shoulder and the other on the spear. She spoke in a language he didn't understand, the words deep and resonant. The air seemed to thicken, as if the room itself was listening. When she finished, she pulled him to his feet. "It is done," she said. "From this day, your victories are mine, and mine are yours." The next weeks were different. They trained together daily, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses. Evan taught her tricks of human engineering, small devices and tools she could use in the field. In return, she taught him Thrila tactics, the rhythm of battle, and the ways to read an opponent's body language before they struck. Their bond became more than ceremony. It was trust, forged in both fire and shadow. That trust was tested sooner than expected. A distress call came from a mining outpost on the edge of the sector. The Black Veil had returned. Taking hostages and demanding payment, Valra didn't hesitate. "We go," she told her warband. The journey to the outpost was tense. The place was half ruined when they arrived, smoke rising from shattered buildings. The Black Veil had fortified themselves in the main control tower. Valra's warriors moved in with precision. Evan stayed at her side, using his smaller size to slip through debris and disabled traps. Inside the tower, they found the hostages guarded by heavily armed mercenaries. The fight was brutal, Valra's spear flashing in the dim light, Evan using his dagger to cut bonds and pull civilians to safety. When the last mercenary fell, the hostages cheered. But it was the look Valra gave him, steady, proud, that stayed with him the most. Back on the station, the story spread quickly. The human and the giantess who fought as one, who broke chains, who faced assassins, who rescued the helpless. It became more than a tale. It became a legend in the making. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck, looking out at the swirling stars, Evan glanced at her. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were going to kill me." Valra's smile was faint, but real. "I considered it," she admitted, "but the spirits had other plans." They stood in silence for a moment. The galaxy stretched out before them, endless and unknown. But whatever came next, they would face it together, human and giantess, bound by choice, not by accident, and somewhere deep inside, Evan knew this was no longer just her story or his, it was theirs.